Since forever, the indie space, albeit from games, serial shows to most printed work throughout the years, has in one way or another always come across the bridge between mainstream and major cultural significance, whether initially or years later. However, for what was mostly always seen as an alternative option, a very compact community, recently these past few years has changed, becoming the go-to, or in some cases we will see be the only option for ambitious and creatively driven creators. As we dive into what's a very rich in both history and the subsequent future of the indie domain, please tell me any similar stories or history that I may have missed. Considering the video's length, there will know there'll be many things that are unfortunately overlooked. My apologies. And do check out the Patreon where you can vote on the topics for my next video. And with all that being said, here is how indie has evolved. The main focal point with this video wasn't one I hope could not just be boiled down to this indie more popular than this mainstream, so indie has evolved or anything like that, but a correct and fair view to the space. It's a very through the foggy glass window view, as I think there's an even more interesting subject. It's far more telling of the shape we see this type of industry has taken. The indie space being a progenitor of high quality fruits of labor, whether it's compelling and complex stories told in a usually short span of time, is not anything new. Only furthers this ongoing message, I think, that's made these past few years in the space feel changing. Case in point being, you. If you're an artist, game developer, and you have that itch to tell your story to the world, most people's answer these days, though each and everyone's plans to their goals is different, understandably. The general consensus is your go-to answer don't have to be going to a studio in the respective genre and work your way up to that position for what could be years and not a guarantee. Obviously, that is admittedly a slightly misconstrued look to something with many nuances, but one that is a fair stance most individuals take, with the most examples of this exact stance done many times in the animation sphere. There's a countless list of shows to movies that were and are cancelled or failed to be greenlit by the parenting companies, even though the audiences are more times than some loud and clear about wanting to see such product, to the point of experienced and talented animators, storyboarders, writers that have the urge to make their works don't rely on the industry anymore, but instead on each other and find other means of outlets to use, disregarding the long established forms of big studios and companies' aid for at one point perceived as unconventional for such work, being YouTube. YouTube's long history of original animation span all the way back to its early years as a platform. By not even having to look far, there's a plethora of indie 2D animation to stop motion animation done independently by creators that didn't have to be in a board meeting pitching their ideas to suits. Not to paint the picture that the indie space is all rainbow and sunshine. And what's more important is whether the challenges or hardships are lesser or greater. Because we, the viewer, knows that's not the case. The creators knows that's not the case. Not all indie animation is required to be the next digital circus, nor is every indie game has to reach the levels of Undertale or Mount Washington to be fulfilling to the players or viewers. Mainly because the idea behind being an indie creator with a varying degree is a lot more about the doing of the thing than the result of the thing. Most if not all indie works are passion projects that are very personal to their creators. I find the greatest joy in the making of the project than anything else, however hard it may be. While writing for this video, I wrestled with the idea of showing an in-depth look at some of my most favorite indie animations I've ever seen, but held back because I didn't want it to come off as flat and point by pointy. But I also wanted to show you the large goldmine of fantastic indie stuff that don't even have a quarter of the recognition the most popular ones have. I inevitably decided to do show you just one, which is one I hold high, which funnily enough is not one that's even a month old, and a thesis film of all else, from the well-known Gobelins Paris and the respective creators, The Shyness of Trees. The best way I could describe this short film is in just 4 words. Go watch it yourself. There are so many ways one could interpret this film and would be arguably justifiable, but there's one way that most leave the film with, and it's the inevitability of age. There's only two characters in this story, and it's a personal one. A worried daughter by the name Helene, who visits her old and similar to her last step in her life mother. As she enters her mom's house, she sees it overrun with roots, moss, plants. The house is bustling with life. There's insects at every corner, but they all seem drawn to something in the garden. where she sees her mother standing in front of this massive tree. As she stands directly in front of what seems to be a hole in the tree, as if it's calling her to fill its place. At this point, we and Helene can tell her mother has sorta lost herself to age, which could have made her had this obsession with plants, as we can tell as her house is full to a brim with them. As Helene expresses concern, her mother seems unbothered, very calm and understanding in tone, saying Helene shouldn't get upset because the plants can sense it, which then causes Helene to lash out. Up to this point, we have a sad and could be relatable story, but for these upcoming scenes, I again have to tell you to watch it and come back as it's very terrible, and I can only go on my perspective. It's a quiet night, her mom presumably asleep. Helene gets a vision of leaves burying her mother. Startled, awake by this, she sees her mother is gone, but out the window is her mother naked with only the cold night wind and the moon covering her. As she walks towards the gigantic tree, with the insects around her holding little plant leaves for what could be offerings and holding their little insects' hands together and dancing as if they're celebrating. Alongside, there's this reverberating voice in the background, echoing. Her mother, now this massive figure, and filling the hole within the tree. Helene, who then begins to climb the now growing taller tree to reach her ascending mother, is now reverted back to her child self. A child crying for their parent, pleading that it's too soon. Her mother, who is already accepting of her fate, assures Helene, who is in this child form, as if no matter what age Helene may be, even if she's not a child anymore, or even if she's older, it's still a relationship between parent and child. That she has no reason to cry, because she will still be with her, just in a different way. Helene, then now accepting, tells her mother a final goodbye, as she falls off the tree to then be reverted to her adult self. It's metaphorical and sure, but transparent that this is a story about grief and sadness for the inevitable. But for the creators to stylistically apply this theme the way they did was genius, with the painterly compositions and the symbiotic perfect soundtrack. The sound of water draining in the sink, the sound of pots clanging together just feels so realistic. That helps ground this world with themes that are real, with characters who don't look real at all, feel real. What is the point of me showing you this? Like I said, compelling and complex stories told in a short fashion is not anything new, and as far as indie goes, they have a whole team behind this. After all, this is from Goblins. Simply put, inspiration. Influence, inspiration, whatever word I can use, I don't think there's any way I could say it without it being corny, but it is true. Don't underestimate the power of not seeing a Disney or Pixar logo on the channel title can do for aspiring folks seeking to try and make their own thing. To the random indie animations you see in a recommended feed, to big channels like Goblin, Glitch, all work together that no matter what the size of the team or scope of the story, not about being the next masterpiece, but in my opinion, more the fact of just being there is what's more important than anything else. And so much of it to the point someone like me makes a video trying to understand an arbitrary thing. People with an incline of drive to make their own thing needs to know that while not easier or harder in some cases, it is absolutely possible. I can't be the only to notice since the rise of major indie projects like Digital Circus and Lackadaisy double if not triple the amount of new indie animation stuff in the works, to community funded projects that were in the creators' minds since childhood, made ever more possible by their banding together for space, should not go unnoticed, as it's so common to the fact it's undermined just how much love folks have for the space and will go through lengths to see more added to it. The reasoning for this video wasn't really for the showcasing of the most popular indie right now, or to be frank, I don't even think there was one. More so just an excuse to send a thank you to the folks that really appreciate and aid these projects and the creators themselves for not giving up, even when most would. Indie space evolving doesn't mean it's passing by anything that was lesser, but enhancing or magnifying its past actions with more of the things, if you're probably watching this video, things we grew to love in the space. Independent, meaningful, and alluring stories that have the most intimate relationship between maker and customer. This video was more so just a nod or recognition to the latest indie stuff we see currently from me as a fan. But anyway, hope you enjoyed the video and remember to have a good one.